Hello and welcome to another video. Now in this video we're going to be speaking about 3 different types of refurbishments. So you've got a cosmetic refurb, you've got a medium-sized refurbishment, and then you've got a heavy refurb. And then, to be honest, the next one up from that would probably be new build development sites. So out of the 4 of them, I would definitely say that I've ticked 3. So property number 1, which was a 1-bed ground floor flat, needed a very basic cosmetic refurb where I literally changed the floors, changed the doors, gave the whole flat a paint. I left the kitchen, I did a couple of little bits and pieces in the bathroom, and I was heavily involved myself, and I only spent a couple of £1,000s. Next property was a little bit of a heavier refurbishment. We had to take all the wallpaper off in the whole property. We had to replaster everything, we had to repaint everything, brand new bathroom, couple of bits and pieces in the kitchen. We ended up spending around sort of 15 to 18,000. And then my most recent project, which was a semi-commercial building which I converted to 2 flats, where I spent over £100,000 building both of those flats. So let's get into this now. Okay, so the first one we're going to speak about is a cosmetic refurb. Now this is the type of refurbishment where you could probably spend anywhere from sort of £500 all the way to around sort of maybe £3,500–4,000. So a very light refurb. You're not doing anything sort of structural, but the difference of how it will look when you first get in there and when you finish the work will look a lot different, and it will probably look like you've spent a lot more money, but you've just been very cost effective with how you've spent your money. So let's just say you repaint everything. You might change the door handles, you might even change the doors, you maybe change a few bits and pieces in the kitchen and the bathroom. You spend as minimum as possible, but try to make it look as effective as possible. The next type of refurb, which is a medium-sized refurbishment, I would say you're spending anywhere from £10,000 all the way to £65,000. So the property that I did, which fell in that category, was a 2-bed terrace house, where we carried out a considerable amount of work, but nothing structural, nothing in the kitchen, but all the floors were changed, doors were changed. There was actually some doors in that property which we just painted and sanded down, and they came out perfectly fine. So overall, the sort of works that you would be doing, which would fall within the sort of medium-sized refurbishment, would be, let's just say, if all the wallpaper's got to come off, if you've got to replaster the whole property, if you've got to redecorate the whole property. Maybe there's some cracks in the ceilings in some of the rooms, so you might have to tack plasterboard over the existing ceiling, or potentially take down what's there and put new plasterboard on top of the joists. You might need a new heating system. It might need a new rewire, new electrics. Potentially you want to put spotlights in. Depends on area where you're investing, if that is cost effective for you to put spotlights in, because it's not always, and of course it's an added cost. You can get really nice light fittings, and in terms of speed, there's less work involved for the electricians. There could be some landscaping work involved, maybe at the front of the property or at the back. But overall, anywhere from sort of £10,000 to £65,000, and that is your medium-sized refurbishment. Now, the heavy refurbishment. So I would say, if you're converting, say, a 2 or 3 bedroom house into a HMO, and you're taking all the floors out, you're taking the chimneys out, ceilings down, etc., that's definitely a heavy refurbishment. If you're converting a house into 2 flats, or an office block into flats, that's also a heavy refurbishment. Anywhere where you are doing structural work, so you could be taking some floors out, putting stills in, and with these sort of refurbishments, your money goes so much quicker. So something where on the previous refurbishment, where you might spend, let's just say, 18,000 getting it to like a perfect standard, let's say it's a 2-bedroom terrace house, on one of these projects, 18,000 could just go on concrete foundations, couple of skips, and maybe your extension brickwork and the roof. Before you know it, that's 18,000 gone. So money goes a lot quicker. But of course, in property, sometimes the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. But of course, the more the risk, probably the more money that's borrowed. and the timelines could be tighter, more investors are involved in the deals, so there's a lot of things to consider. But with heavier refurbishments, maybe it wouldn't be yourself managing, because some people who don't have a lot of experience in property, they'll manage a cosmetic refurb, they'll manage a medium-sized refurbishment, but when it comes to a heavy refurb, I've seen some people doing it, and I'm sure if anyone watches some of these programs on the TV, it's quite entertaining watching, and they end up living on the job in a caravan and divorcing their missus a couple months later, because they think that they can build 5 detached houses with no building knowledge or experience. But it can be done, we've seen it, but what would probably be advised is if you get a main contractor in, what you would do is you'd get 3 main contractors to tender for the job once you've had all of your drawings made up from your architect and your structural engineer's given all of his calculations and his reports, and then once you've had 3 tenders from 3 main contractors, decide who you want to go with, sign some contracts with timelines, etc., and then just leave it to them. You tell them what kitchens you want, what floorings you want, what doors you want, handles, etc., and you crack on with the rest of your business. So the last type of refurbishment, which actually I wouldn't even call it refurbishment, the last type of project size would be a new build development, so from the ground up, which funny enough, on my last project, the guy from building control, he actually said to me the sort of project that I was doing, working with a really old building, old brickwork, putting stills in, putting new lintels in, he said there's a lot of new builds which would be 100 times easier than this sort of project, which when he first said it I thought, I don't understand what you're saying here, but it all made sense really. Once you've got your services run into your new build site or your new build development and your brickwork has commenced, essentially everything else will just slot into place. Your brickwork goes up, your joists go on first floor, brickwork goes up again, joists again, put the roof on, and then your first fix carpentry, electrics, plumbing, plastering, and then it's just like that system. But when you're working in very old buildings, there's a lot more sort of things that can get complicated. You have to sort of reinstall things that are already there. For example, on my last project, I had to sand and cement, basically render the whole inside of the property because the brickwork wasn't brilliant at all. So you wouldn't have to do something like that, and I'm pretty sure that cost around sort of £4,000–5,000. But the best thing that I can advise with medium-sized refurbishments and heavy refurbishments, always leave a sort of 18 to 25% contingency, because you never know what's going to pop up when you're doing these sort of projects. For example, on the last one, when we took all the flooring up, all the floorboards up on the ground floor, there was all of the joists which were just completely rotten. And I remember one of my friends at the time giving me a hand. I wasn't on the project and he sent me a video, and I just said, yeah, we can't save any of that. Everything had to just go in the skip, and we ended up putting in a brand new solid concrete floor on the ground floor, which obviously in terms of longevity has many benefits as opposed to putting in timber joists. So a contingency is really important. Remember that with cosmetic refurbs, there's not much that can go wrong. You can really sort of view the property, see what needs to be done, you can price it on paper, and there's not anything else that's going to pop up because you're not putting walls down, you're not putting ceilings down, it's all just on the surface work. Okay, so when it comes to pricing these sort of projects now, with your cosmetic refurbishments, I feel like someone who has no construction knowledge can do this quite easily, because if you're going to manage it yourself, you want to look at what carpentry work needs doing, what electric work needs doing, what plumbing work needs doing. Obviously work your way through the trades. You can just do this on paper if you prefer spreadsheets. Contact each trade individually, get your quotes, and then add on an extra sort of 10–15%, and then you can really get a good idea how much that cosmetic refurb is going to cost. But it's very simple really, even if you don't have too much experience. Obviously with medium-sized refurbishment, once you start going into doing a bit more structural work, labour costs are a bit more expensive, so you could be paying someone, say, £250 a day to do structural alterations, and obviously there's certain things you want to make sure like they are insured to do that sort of work, because you think your asset is currently sat there and you're doing things to make it slightly unstable whilst you can do the next part of the project. So you want to make sure the individuals who are doing that sort of work, they have the right insurance in place. But for you to do this individually across, say, like a whole refurb with no experience, you could do it, but you might miss a few things. So you might be better off to get a small building company, tell them specifications. You don't need drawings or anything like that. That would be a waste of money, because you're not altering floor plans. You just want to tell them that it needs to be plastered, what colour paint you want, what kitchens you want to put in, what's your budget, and they'll give you a an estimate based on your specification. That's probably your best bet. And then of course, when it comes to the heavy refurbishments, if you're building a house on the ground up, or you're doing like a large office to residential or HMO conversion, you probably don't want to be managing this yourself. You can do, and it will work, but if you're looking to approach this with more of a business mentality, and maybe you want to do 3 HMOs this year, you want to be getting a main contractor to do that job, because then if you're happy, he can do the next one. Or you want to build relationships with a few good local main contractors who can do the projects, and then you just eventually keep him ticking over with the work. Because trust me, coming from someone who's got good experience and good knowledge and good contacts in the industry, doing your own projects on a large scale somewhere not close to home is definitely not easy. It's doable, and you will save money, but it will take a lot of your time, and it'll also be very stressful at the same time. So that would be my best advice. Find some good builders locally, and from doing that you can obviously go on Google, look at their reviews. My best tip would be find someone with a strong social media presence, maybe a Facebook page, their own website, lots of reviews, and then even go to the point of finding a house or a client they've worked for recently, and just go in to speak to them and ask them how their experience was with that particular builder. That's one of the best things you can actually do. Okay, thank you for tuning in for another video. Hope to see you on the next one. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you then. Cheers.